How's it going, everyone? This is Jack here with the Commander's Wire, and welcome back to another video. Today we had the first press conference for the 2026 season that had Dan Quinn, new offensive coordinator David Blough, and new defensive coordinator Darontae Jones starting off the season with their first thoughts as well as new things that they wanted to install in the Washington Commanders for this upcoming 2026 season. If you guys have not already, I'd really appreciate it if you guys went down below, dropped a like, subscribed, and turned on post notifications so you know when I post next. I really do appreciate it, and you guys will stay up to date with everything regarding the Washington Commanders. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. So like I said before, we had the first press conference. It lasted about an hour and a half long, and make sure to drop a like and subscribe because I sat through that entire thing listening to everything that Dan Quinn needed to say, that Darontae Jones needed to say, as well as David Blough. And I wrote down a lot of notes about what the main things that each of the three have said in their first press conference for the 2026 season. So I'm starting with Dan Quinn here. He started out naming the new hires that the Commanders have made over the course of the last couple weeks. I think I'm up to date on all of them. However, the two newest hires that I have not seen yet is William Gay, who's going to be the new cornerbacks coach, I believe, for the Washington Commanders, as well as Wes Walker. He's been hired for a offensive role that is still to be determined. I believe he was working with special teams, so now he is strictly on the offensive side for the 2026 season. Dan Quinn also had a lot of coach talk regarding moving on from Cliff Kingsbury, saying a lot but not saying anything at all. That's kind of how he rolls, and I'm not really surprised, but we all know Cliff Kingsbury and the Commanders, they kind of mutually agreed to part ways. Obviously, Cliff Kingsbury wanted to find a head coaching role in this year's head coaching cycle and landed himself on the offensive side of the ball with the LA Rams in a to-be-determined role as well. But Dan Quinn also said that he learned a lot from Darontae Jones, and he's also letting him develop his own scheme from the players first rather than a bias from what Dan Quinn usually runs on the defense. I think this is huge. This will allow Darontae Jones to install everything that he wants to in this defensive side of the ball, not letting Dan Quinn having too much control over what the defense needs to do. I'm hoping that this allows Darontae Jones to use the young guys in different roles to see what they can do and hopefully get more snaps. Like I said before, Quinn is letting Darontae install his own system into the defense and really letting go of the Dan Quinn system that we all know today. Dan Quinn also says that David Blough was hired mainly due to his continuity and his relationship with Jaden Daniels, and then that David Blough also has fresh eyes that can bring new ideas to the offense, and I think that's great. We talked about that before. He's new, he has been in multiple systems, and he's going to be able to make a whole new offense based on those systems, and hopefully it will be very productive here with the Washington Commanders. Dan Quinn has also been keeping tabs on new quarterbacks coach DJ Williams for a while, and he's also been keeping up with Raheem Morris, the head coach in Atlanta, with DJ Williams, just to see how DJ was doing, especially with how he's developing as a quarterbacks coach. And that is what ultimately led to DJ Williams being hired as the new quarterbacks coach for the Washington Commanders. DQ also says that both the new coordinators have a lot of enthusiasm for teaching and motivating their players, which is always great to hear. He says that there's going to be a new offense that's going to be balanced but also very aggressive, and they're going to be focusing more on under center and play action. So probably going to be more West Coast style. And he also says that they are already installing new systems with coaches, and they have already started scouting new players, as well as allowing the new coaches to scout out the current players signed to the Commanders roster in order to get a greater feel for how the new offense and how the new defense is going to work. Trying to get the ball rolling as soon as possible and basically just focusing on the next season, getting that whole process started as a whole. So I'm super excited about that, and that is all the notes I had for Dan Quinn. Next up, we had Darontae Jones. He came out onto the press conference. He was very lively. He did not use that much coach talk. He really wanted to answer the questions with as much honesty as possible, which really is great to hear for me personally, because I was able to actually understand what he was saying and not just try to work through all the fluff that he was adding. And he really just answered all the questions with honesty, and I really did appreciate that. And he also just seemed super enthusiastic, very confident dude, and I really admire that type of person that Darontae is. So let's get on with the notes I had for him. He wants to install a versatile defense that is also a very adaptable defense. He wants to use players' strengths to their advantage as well as minimizing each player's weaknesses. He was asked a question about using a 3-4 compared to a 4-3, and his answer was a little mysterious, I could say. However, he said numbers are just numbers. Either way, there's 7 people going to be in the box at one time, and there could be more or less than that depending on the special situation. But he says that most likely we'll be using a mix of both. So we'll be looking into a little more of the Brian Flores type scheme as well as bringing back the Dan Quinn type scheme when it comes to the front 7. Darontae Jones highlighted a couple players, saying that he loves Frankie Louvu, and he believes that Frankie Louvu plays best when he's using his speed downhill and matched up with running backs. He's to be used more of a blitzer rather than a pass rusher, and we saw that he really struggled against, trying to get around tackles. And when he's able to match up with a tight end or a running back and trying to blitz rather than being one-on-one with a blocker, he's just much better as a player. And hopefully he can get back to that 2024 season performance that he had this upcoming season in 2026. Darontae Jones also said that he wants to establish good fundamentals on the line of scrimmage, but adapt in other ways with the rest of the defense. So he wants to have a brick wall up there, but when it comes to the linebackers, the secondary, he wants to allow them to be versatile and move all over the field, and I think that is going to be a very, very productive thing for the Commanders to look into. He also said that he's excited to work with young players like Mikey Sanders-Stroh, Jordan McGee, Javon Kinlaw, and as well as the secondary as a whole. So I'm hoping to get an absolute overhaul as well as using the young players and getting them as many snaps as possible this upcoming season. He said that he wants to be heavily focused on individual player development. He wants to learn how the players learn so that he can best help them develop to be the best player as possible. He also wants to allow the fans to see the joy from watching the game. They want to see the joy of the players and the joy of the team playing together, right? He wants to install a defense that plays as a team. They don't care who's making plays as long as the team is making plays, and I think that is very important. He says that he wants to attack the football, create takeaways, and just have an overall high IQ football team. He also wants to establish trust with the person before the player, and he thinks that will overall just make the team a better group as a whole, and allow them to be more personable and make it a family rather than just a group of people. He also wants to be aggressive on defense, but only aggressive if that's what the roster is like. He wants to adapt his scheme to the players rather than adapt his players to the scheme. He thinks that by choosing players first, he will just create a better defense overall rather than trying to fit a square block into a circle hole. He also wants to focus on the young guys, but bring in tough, young, versatile, aggressive, and adaptable free agents to the Washington Commanders to round out the defense. But he also says there needs to be a balance. He can't have too many young players or as well as too many vets, because then that creates uncertainty with the team as a whole. He also wants to be creative on defense from both players and coaches. He doesn't want players to have to feel like they can't say anything during team meetings just because they need to listen to what the coaches are saying, and vice versa. They want to have everyone be able to point things out and just help everyone develop no matter who they are. And I think that is also going to be a very good thing for the Commanders. And lastly, I thought that Darontae Jones' first press conference as the Commanders' defensive coordinator was absolutely amazing. He's a great human being. He came from the very bottom. He's worked all around football, whether it be high school, even younger than that, all around college, even he said the UFL or CFL, something like that, and even here in the NFL. And I think that because of that experience, because of being at the bottom and now being here, he's just a well-rounded human being, and I hope that he's able to bring that type of attitude and character to the locker room and just make the team better as a whole. So that's all that I have for Darontae Jones. And lastly, David Blough. Obviously, he's a first-year offensive coordinator. He was in the league as a player just a couple years ago, and so he seemed very nervous. I think he was taking a page out of Dan Quinn's book. He was saying a lot, but not really saying that much at all. A lot of filler, a lot of fluff. But I did have a couple notes that I wanted to bring up for today's video on his press conference. To start off, he credits his quarterback background to being a stepping stone into becoming an offensive coordinator when it came to, calling plays in the huddle. I think that made him a better person to call plays from the sideline. He also wants the offense to be more of a melting pot. bringing in new players that have a different background or where they came from. He wants the offense to kind of be a mesh of everything that he has experienced in the NFL, whether it be from mixing different systems. He just wants to make the offense as versatile as possible. He also wants to focus on more under center because he believes that opens up more of the run game and play action, which I think is a very good thing to add. And he also has a great relationship with Jaden already, so that continuity aspect will allow him to be a better offensive coordinator. Even though he doesn't have that much experience, I think that the continuity, the relationship that he's already built over the past couple years will allow him and Jaden to create a better offense as a whole here in 2026. Cliff Kingsbury helped teach Blough on different ins and outs of becoming an offensive coordinator, and he also wants to keep up the high tempo of offense, and maybe that will continue with the no huddle that Cliff Kingsbury was very popular for. I don't know how to think about this. I think the no huddle is good with some reasons. It keeps whoever defense you're playing on their toes. They can't really have a break, but at the same time that can allow for more mistakes to happen with the offense, so we'll just have to see how that works out once the 2026 season starts. He's also feeling great about building the offense. He's looking forward to free agency, the draft, and just creating an entire team. I think he said that there's only like 25 or so players signed to the offensive side of the ball as of right now, so there's going to be a lot of holes to fill, and he's very excited for continuing on with the offseason. He talked about the running back room for a little bit. He said that Bill showed flashes, but he said there will be also a lot more acquisitions added to the running back room. I think acquisitions is a word I want to highlight with what he said. Acquisitions normally mean something new rather than re-signing something that was already there, which makes me kind of believe that C-Rod may not get signed. I don't know if that's just him not really thinking and just using acquisition as a word. I may be looking too far into this, but regardless, we could be seeing Bill as the day one starter, getting a majority of the snaps, and they may be moving on from C-Rod, which I love C-Rod. However, I like Bill a lot as well. I want to see one of them just being the day one starter, getting all the snaps, rather than having a running back room by committee, and that will allow them to have more flexibility with bringing other running backs in, maybe like a Rachaad White who could help out on later downs in the passing game. I think that would be a great acquisition. I personally love playing Madden franchise, like I said in a past video, and in the rebuild I'm doing with the Washington Commanders right now, I have Bill and Rachaad White, and they're my 1-2 punch when it comes to the offense. I really have a lot of play action. I'm using a 3-4 base with the Minnesota Vikings defensive playbook as well as the Chicago Bears offensive playbook, and I think it's working really well. Bill is doing great. Because of that, I think having Bill being that kind of early down thumper, using his speed kind of like a Jahmyr Gibbs minus the pass catching, which I know he needs to develop over the offseason, a better skill set in the passing game. However, using him on early downs and run the football, uses speed and his ability to just run through the gaps, and then having another guy come in on later downs and just being a reliable pass catcher out of the backfield or wherever they are, I think is a really good addition to the offense, because we all know Jaden Daniels, he's another dynamic in the running game as well as his really strong arm, so he wants to air it out. So I think that having all those aspects of the offense would be a really great thing for the Washington Commanders. And lastly, David Blough finished it up. He really wants to have an explosive offense, and he also mentioned having a violent offense. Normally you don't really hear that when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. You normally hear like a violent defense, so we'll just have to see what a violent offense looks like for when David Blough and the Washington Commanders debut here in a couple months. So that is it for the press conference with Dan Quinn, Darontae Jones, and David Blough. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are down in the comments. Are you guys liking what they said? Are you guys liking the hires of David Blough and Darontae Jones? I really want to hear what you guys have to say. This is the end of today's video. I really do appreciate you guys watching to the very end. If you have not already, please go down below, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to know when I post next. I really do appreciate it, and it lets me know that you guys want more Commanders content just like this. Like I said before, thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and hail to the Commanders.